Hey there, James here with Penner Trailer Sales. We're also excited to be able to be a Kioti dealer, and today I wanted to do a video to demystify emissions. With off-road diesel engines, it's divided up from anything under 25 horsepower. The next bracket is 25 to 75 horsepower, and then it's 75 plus. This tractor sitting beside me here is under the 25 horsepower. I think it's 24 and a half, just under. You'll see a lot of manufacturers, they'll have a 24 point some horsepower engine, and they're doing that intentionally just to be able to give as much power as they can and stay underneath the emissions threshold. When I say it has no emissions, that basically means it's just the engine. It may or may not have a turbo. This particular engine is naturally aspirated, so there's no turbo. So it has an exhaust manifold, it has a muffler, and it has an exhaust pipe, and that's it. Usually these 25 horsepower and under engines are mechanical. Mechanical means that there's no computer, there's no electronic engine management. So the amount of diesel that's injected into the combustion chamber is preset. It'll inject the same amount whether it's 10 below zero or 95 above. To accommodate for that, to make it start a little easier in the cold temperatures, you'll see glow plug systems, and it just kind of looks like a spark plug, but it's a little heater in each cylinder in the combustion chamber that will warm the combustion chamber for a couple of seconds and heat it up so that the fuel is able to ignite easier, and you're able to start the engine. Then it can run and warm itself up from there. Moving up in horsepower range is the 25 to 75 horsepower range, as I mentioned before. This tractor here is the RX 6620, so it's rated at 66 horsepower. So it has some emission systems on it. It's also an electronically controlled engine. The emission system that you'll usually see in the 25 to 75 is a diesel particulate filter, a DPF, and you'll also see EGR, exhaust gas recirculation systems. I won't get into all the details and the nuances, but the exhaust gas recirculation, the EGR, is just as it says, it recirculates some of the exhaust gas. So when the exhaust gas comes out of the engine on the exhaust side, there's a valve that will funnel some of that, depending on conditions and engine operating temperatures and so on. We'll funnel some of that around. It will cool it. This item right here, this part right here, is the EGR cooler, exhaust gas cooler. So it cools the hot exhaust gases and then reintroduces them into the intake, and they pass back through the engine, so they're recirculated. And they're doing that to be able, in an effort to reduce some of the emissions that are coming out the tailpipe. The DPF, the diesel particulate filter, that's this item here. Kind of looks like a muffler, but it's not. You can think of it as a ceramic brick, a porous ceramic brick. The exhaust gases are able to pass through this brick, but it's kind of like a sponge. It's a filter. It's able to absorb and catch the soot. And soot is what makes black smoke from a diesel. So previous engines that didn't have emission systems, or the smaller ones under 25 horsepower, you'll see them produce some black soot, maybe some black smoke, maybe on startup, or if you're lugging the engine. So this particulate filter actually catches that soot. So you won't see any black smoke come out of a tailpipe on an engine with a DPF system unless something's gone wrong. Over time, as this DPF absorbs that soot and contains it, eventually it reaches capacity and it gets full. And then it does a regeneration cycle, or a regen. And a regen, it'll probably turn a light on the dash to let you know, say, hey, I'm doing a regen. Exhaust gas temperatures might be a little hotter than normal. Doesn't really affect your operation, generally speaking. You can continue to operate it as normal, but it will burn off, it will burn out that soot, turn it to ash, which takes a lot less space, and burns out whatever unburnt particles are there. These engines, in order to be happy, what they like to feel, what they like to have is high RPMs, because at higher RPMs, the engine is able to burn cleaner. The combustion temperatures are higher, it can burn the fuel more completely, and there's less soot created. So it fills the DPF there's the cycles, the intervals between regens can be longer. It doesn't fill up the DPF nearly as quickly. And then also when it is doing a regen, it wants high RPM, so it can have high exhaust temperatures to be able to burn that out. The technology has been able to become quite reliable. Earlier technologies, there's been some horror stories and misconceptions and the problems that can come from emission systems and DPFs and so on. and I'm not speaking specifically of Kioti, but kind of the industry and the technology as a whole. But over the years, it's been able to be much better understood and has become quite reliable. As a Kioti dealer and talking to other colleagues, other Kioti dealers, we see very little to no warranty or failure issues with the exhaust, with the emission system. So as a tractor owner, I can assure you, you can rest assured that you'll see very little, there's no periodic maintenance, and generally you won't see any issues with your emission system either. They're relatively low maintenance and have become quite reliable. Over the 75 horsepower range is where you'll start to see DEF fluid. Kioti does have some tractor models that would be in that segment. The HX series in particular would have engines that have DEF fluid. DEF stands for diesel exhaust fluid, and it's basically just a urea-based fluid that you keep filled. It injects that into the exhaust to also change some of the chemical compounds there to have less harmful emissions. DEF fluid is not scary fluid. It's actually quite harmless. It's urea-based. If you dump it on the grass, it'll actually probably cause it to grow quite well because it's urea as a fertilizer. It will burn your eyes if you get it in your eyes, but it's one of the least toxic fluids on a tractor or on an engine that has DEF fluid. It's one of the least compared to oil or hydraulic fluid or diesel. So that's fairly comprehensive here on emission systems. I hope that demystifies it a little bit. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us here at Penner Trailer Sales. We'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you. 931-361-1122.